Hello, everybody. How you doing? Welcome to Shadow at Night. It's Thursday, December the 5th, 2024. I'm rubbing my hands together because the heat's been off in my place for the last few hours. It only just came back on like 15 minutes ago. And I was wrapped in a blanket sitting here getting the show together. And interestingly, it's minus 10 here. Feels like minus 20 with the wind chill. I was out for lunch with a buddy today and went out for my daily walk after that and thought, get home, I'll warm up, I'll have a hot shower. And no. So if I come across a little bit uncomfortable tonight, that's why. But again, the heat is back on, so I don't have to worry too much about it. Hopefully, fingers are crossed for the rest of the night. The Liberals have added to their gun grab, and we're going to go into detail on that in a little bit. Also, there was debate in the House of Commons today regarding this non-confidence motion that's supposed to happen on Monday. So it's a formality, really, because Jagmeet Singh has already said he's not going to support it. So it'll be voted down Monday in the House of Commons. But you can't fault the Conservatives and the Bloc for trying. Yes, the Conservatives and the Bloc are working together. What strange times we live in. 10 years ago, if any party worked with the Bloc Québécois, I would have been, what? They're separatists. Are you kidding me? But now, man, any port in the storm, I don't care. It's just gotten so bad. I have never actually hated, and I know that's a strong word. I don't like to use it, but I have never actually hated an elected official in our country except for Justin Trudeau. And then, of course, anybody that goes along with him, like Chrystia Freeland, all those ridiculous cabinet ministers, and the NDP for supporting him, Jagmeet Singh. But yeah, I would have to say, and maybe you guys agree, because we're not hateful people. And I don't like to use the word hate, but I just get this visceral, guttural every time. And he won't leave. Just won't go away, dude. Go away. And if I were talking to him, if I was trying to placate his ego and get him to leave that way, I'd say, you have given everything. You have tried your best to remake Canada in your own image. And now, after 9 laborious years of hard work and dedication and making Canada great again, sir, I think it's time for you to step down. No, I don't know if I could actually force myself to say those words to him. It was tough enough getting myself to say those words to you right now. The Shadow at Night live stream, as always, is brought to you by our friends Kevin and Anna at CanadaNanoSilver.com. Again, that is CanadaNanoSilver.com. Hey, here's one of the great products. I should put this on later on. It'll warm me up and make my muscles feel better all at the same time. The Recover Muscle Cream. Recover. Experience the ultimate comfort and relaxation as Recover works its magic. Formulated with cutting-edge technology, our advanced muscle cream provides unparalleled relief catering to your unique needs and no chemicals like you find in the other stuff you buy at Shoppers Drug Mart. Made with the power of Silver Sol technology. This, my friends, Silverceutical technology. This, my friends, is Nano Silver working at its best to make you feel better. Now, it does have that same kind of smell that the A535 has, but none of the chemicals that go along with it. And believe me when I tell you, because I have used this stuff. I've got it in my bathroom cabinet right now. I used it after a golf game, a couple of golf games this past summer. Worked quick. It does work. The Recover Muscle Cream, available at CanadaNanoSilver.com. If you're looking for a retail location, you can find one. There's over 30 all across the country to choose from. Maybe there's one very close to you. If you want to become a retailer of these awesome products, get a hold of Kevin and Anna through the contact tab on the website at CanadaNanoSilver.com. Again, that is CanadaNanoSilver.com. Let's say some hellos. Who is here tonight? Michael is watching from Brampton. Oh, I always mistake Brampton and Brantford. Always have, always probably will. I said Brantford last night when I meant Brampton, not referring to you, Michael. something else. But thank you very much for everything that you've done for me and for this show for the past couple of years. It does not go unnoticed. It goes highly appreciated, as a matter of fact. Lucette's watching from Saint Jean Baptiste tonight. Leonard watching from Altona. Hello, JJ in Calgary. Linda's watching in Trenton. Kathy is in Bothwell, Ontario. Carla's in Calgary. Hello, Lise watching in Strathmore. Wanda watching in Sudbury. Mimi is here tonight. Hello, Sharon watching in Quebec. Jason is watching from somewhere. I don't know where, but he says, hello, freedom fighters. Linda's watching from Ajax, Ontario. Cindy, Derek, Barbara, Dan, Leona, Julie, Sharon, Patricia, Jonathan. Jonathan's watching on YouTube tonight from Newcomerstown, Ohio. Tammy is watching on Vancouver Island. Greg, the gang's all here. Let's get this out to as many people as we possibly can. You like, you share, you do it on whatever platform you're watching on. If it's Facebook, get it out there. The like and the share. It's very important, you guys, especially with Meta, because they have been seriously suppressing this show in the last week. And I got a message, I think I told you last night, I got a message from them saying that the show is no longer shareable or recommendable. Recommendable it was. And so I need you to be the recommenders for me so we can get this information out to as many people as we possibly can. It seems to be a little bit easier, believe it or not, on YouTube. Still suppression, but if you're not following me on YouTube, there's like 2,100 followers over there. Go ahead and find me on YouTube and follow the show there and give us a share and a like tonight on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitch or on X or on Telegram or on Rumble, get it out there as well. And thank you to the members, the all-access members at shadowdavis.com. We're going to go more into the bio-digital convergence on the extension tonight on the website just after 9 o'clock Central. All right, let's get to the stories that we're following for tonight. This gun thing. Trudeau will not give up the guns for whatever reason, even though he hasn't gotten a single gun in 3 years. Got a great video to play for you in just a couple of seconds. It comes from Sheldon Clare, who at the time was the president of Canada's National Firearms Association. He's now a MLA for the Conservative Party out there. We'll play that for you in just a second. This story comes from the CPC. Liberal government adds hundreds of firearm models to list of banned weapons. Move comes one day before the anniversary of the École Polytechnique massacre 35 years ago. They have to go back that far to find a terrible disaster that happened with gunplay in Canada. Now, I know it was terrible, but it is 35 years ago, and it's politically motivated. Let's do it on the anniversary of the big thing 35 years ago. The Trudeau government announced new gun control measures today, adding several hundred models and variants to its list of banned weapons. These firearms can no longer be legally used, sold, or imported in Canada, Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc told reporters. The announcement comes one day before the 35th anniversary of the massacre at École Polytechnique de Montreal. Radio Canada's first reported the news earlier today. The new measures, which are effective immediately, list more than 300 makes and models of what the government calls assault-style firearms as prohibited weapons. Now, we all know what they're really trying to do with this gun scheme. But again, here is that video with Sheldon Clare. 3 years ago, he released this video. At the time, like I said, he was Canada's National Firearms Association's president. Listen to what he has to say.
Hi, I'm Sheldon Clare, President of Canada's National Firearms Association. As you may have heard, there are rumors of a fall election in the air. The National Firearms Association has begun its work as a third party in the pre-writ period to target specific swing ridings so as to defeat Liberals. With our operational efforts and your work on the ground, we can win this election and stop the corrupt Trudeau Liberals from continuing their dangerous, divisive, and destructive woke political agenda. As we are well aware, a significant part of that agenda is to spend nearly $1 billion of your tax money to steal our firearms from us. Our legal efforts and fundraising in support of Parker and KKS Tactical versus Canada to push back on the May 1st, 2020 order in Council is an important part of our fight. Make no mistake, though, this fight must be won at the ballot box. This liberal socialist agenda has nothing whatsoever to do with public safety and everything to do with civil disarmament. The Liberals are getting support from well-funded anti-gun groups with ties to groups in other countries. Our tax dollars are being used to support coordinated international gun control, and it's not okay. The government will be taking a number of steps to force us to comply. They will send directives and offers of compensation for you to voluntarily surrender your property, at least the registered ones that they know about. That's why one should never register one's firearms. Registration has never been about anything but confiscation. The Parliamentary Budget Office is saying this program will cost $750 million. Others have calculated that it will cost at least $5 billion, and perhaps as much as $25 billion when you include all of the necessary infrastructure across the country and consider the role of compound interest. The gun grabbers believe that they will force innocent firearm owners to surrender firearms for compensation. No matter how tempting the 30 pieces of silver may look, I can assure you that it will not be enough, nor will complying in any way stop more gun grabs in the future. The time to say no is now. When it becomes clear that many of us have no intention of surrendering our property, they will up the ante and they will begin threatening people with removing their firearm privileges, and even by making examples of people with criminal prosecution. State organized coercion is a serious matter and should not be taken lightly. They may, as a last resort, even try making examples of people by going to homes to seize guns. That activity will most certainly not go well. People showing up to seize guns from innocent Canadians are nothing less than agents of authoritarianism, and such oppressive behavior by government is not appropriate in a free society and cannot be tolerated. If allowed to progress, such actions by the government will lead to a progression of resistance. Such resistance will both be passive and active and will be a tangible demonstration of a growing loss of respect for law and order. However, we can prevent all of this by getting involved in the next federal election. Staying home and refusing to vote is not an option. Voting for a fringe party as a protest vote would be a huge mistake that will only help Liberals to hold on to power. A consolidated effort will be necessary in order to push back against the gun grabbers, and that means engaging with your local candidates. It means working to get out the vote, and by making it clear to candidates why you are there. Any party who seeks to replace the Liberals must see us as a significant political force, and the effectiveness of our effort will be measured in parliamentary seats in the election. If we do not win this election, we are in for dark times indeed. And when a government as corrupt and divisive as the one we currently have wants to take our guns, it's quite clear that we must be vigorous in preventing them from success. Never give up your guns. Keep your powder dry. Join and support Canada's National Firearms Association. Visit us at nfa.ca. I'm Sheldon Clare, President of Canada's National Firearms Association, and I want to thank you for listening.
I like that guy, Sheldon Clare, who is now Conservative MLA in British Columbia. He just was elected in this past election from Moosehead, somewhere up in the northern part of the province. But yeah, he's in government now. Well, not quite government. He's in the opposition, but he's still there. He's still fighting for the people of British Columbia. I like guys like that. Guys who are willing to actually stand up and say what they mean publicly, in front of everybody, for all to see. Go ahead, Trudeau. Come and try it. Now, that video, like I said, was released 3 years ago. We didn't win that last election. That was a Trudeau minority, obviously. There is an election coming up in Canada very, very soon. Was he right? Was Sheldon right about what Trudeau was trying to do? Well, what happened today? 300 more assault-style weapons have been added to the banned list in Canada, even as fentanyl just continues to ramp up production. Criminals all across the country. And those criminals are protecting their fentanyl with, you guessed it, illegal guns that come from the United States of America. Do you think that, who did Trudeau ask? The mailman? Hey, mailman, look, while you're doing your rounds, can you go and pick up some guns for us? I believe he actually asked Canada Post if they'd be interested in doing that. Of course, they said no. And the military said, no, we're not doing that either, in terms of going to actually grab your guns. So they did make an effort to do that. So Sheldon was right about that. And they're trying to ban even more weapons as we speak. Today is just another example of how far they're going to try and go to disarm the public so we can never fight back against their tyranny. Does the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms protect, well, white people? We're going to get into that in just a second. Here's a story came out yesterday from TNC.news. No whites allowed at University of Winnipeg BIPOC Lounge. Now, these BIPOC lounges have been springing up at universities all across the country in the last year or year and a half. And the latest one being the University of Winnipeg allows all students, you can come in, all students to enter and enjoy their BIPOC lounge as long as you don't identify as white. So you can go in there being white, you just can't identify as white. Inside the University of Winnipeg's Bullman Student Center, the University Student Association opens its BIPOC lounge every day from 10 until 4 to serve as a safe space exclusively for students who identify as Black, Indigenous, or as a person of color. The University of Winnipeg Student Association claims that the BIPOC Lounge is a dedicated safe space for people of color to learn and heal through their understandings and experiences as a BIPOC. A list of the lounge's rules posted at the entrance clearly states that students who do not identify as Black, Indigenous, or as a person of color do not meet the requirements to enter the lounge and are not welcome inside. The lounge's Facebook and Instagram pages promote exclusive movie nights, study sessions, and book club meetings, among other events, open only to students of color. The University of Winnipeg celebrates its campus's racial diversity, boasting that 11.8% of the student population identifies as Indigenous. Among the university's international students, as of 5 years ago, 582 came from India, 135 from Nigeria, and 52 came from China. Between 2019 and 2023, the number of international students climbed from 13 to 18% of the student population. The University of Winnipeg Student Association does not make clear whether or not racial minorities like East Asians or Jews are allowed in this BIPOC lounge. True North reached out to the University of Winnipeg Student Association and the BIPOC Lounge for comment, but did not receive a reply. Universities offering racially segregated programs to racial minorities has become a growing trend in Canada. In 2022, True North reported on a similar program at St. Catharines, Ontario's Brock University, where students who identified as Black, Indigenous, or a person of color could exclusively access their BIPOC study hall, which offered racialized students free tutoring from fourth-year students. Earlier this year, True North reported that the University of Waterloo began offering racially segregated swim times exclusive for Black folks, to help the Black community develop a better relationship with water. All right. This is Jamil Jivani. He is a relatively new conservative MP in the House of Commons, and he wants to protect Christians. And so Nate Erskine-Smith, a Liberal MP, retweeted him saying, those liberals and their woke identity politics. Hey, wait a minute. He's claiming that wanting to protect Christianity is somehow woke. We're going to get to the comments on this tweet in just a couple of minutes, but first, here's Jamil. Here's Jamil.
Jamil Jivani here, Member of Parliament for Durham. I'm sounding the alarm. We need to do more to protect Christians in Canada. Now, when you see a Christmas tree like this in Parliament, you might think that's a sign of respect for Christians. But what good is a Christmas tree here in Parliament when you have a federal government that will not lift a finger to protect Christians from governments and corporations abusing their power? What good is a Christmas tree here in Parliament when you have a federal government that will not fight anti-Christian bigotry in Canadian institutions? We've got to take action now. We need to defend parental rights of mothers and fathers. We need to defend conscience rights of unionized and non-unionized workers, including healthcare professionals. We have to stop the crime spree targeting churches, including arsons and vandalism, and we need to defend the legal status of Christian charities and the freedom of expression of Christian churches. The time for action is now. Make your voice heard, take a stand. We're launching a petition today at protectchristianscanada.com. I'm asking you to go on that website, and if you agree with me that we've got to do more to protect Christians in our country, please sign and share that petition. Take a stand, make your voice heard. We're going to be presenting that petition at an event here in Ottawa in February of next year. And between now and then, we need as many people as possible to show support for the Christian communities in our country. This is not about forcing other people to live according to Christian values, no. This is about whether Christians in Canada have the freedom to live according to their own traditions and to practice their own faith without corporations and governments engaging in overreach. The time is now, ladies and gentlemen. That is why I'm sounding the alarm. Visit protectchristianscanada.com. Thank you. God bless you.
Protect Christians in Canada. ProtectChristiansCanada.com. Thank you, Jamil, for that. So let's get back to this tweet by Nate Erskine Smith, who, by the way, is the author of Bill C-293. I'm sure you know about that. It's the vegan bill. It's also the pandemic bill to get rid of meat so they can control meat, during a pandemic, and pretty much every other food that we're allowed to eat during an emergency, of course. So again, Nate Erskine Smith, Liberal MP, tweets this out, retweeting Jamal's tweet. All those liberals and their woke identity politics. Wait a minute. Right. So let's have a look at some of the comments that came in underneath Nate's tweet. Oh, including mine. Look, I said, do you have any idea what you're talking about? Are you seriously that out of touch with Canada? Seriously? And then Vitamin D says, you've not once tweeted about all of the church burnings in Canada. Forgive us if we don't give an F what you think. Anytime a liberal tweets, man, it's just like this times 100. So protecting terrorists running through the streets screaming death to Canada. It's about human rights. But when someone wants to protect Christian Canadians, it's politics. Bougie says, F you, bud. We're a Christian-based society with rules and laws based on this religion. Yet the liberals protect, shield, and harbor terrorist sympathizers running through our streets, screaming death to Jews and death to the colonial state that is Canada. F you. Brand75, Christianity isn't woke, jackass. Dogma for brains, wokies hate anything older than their 5-minute-old religion from Doug E. Phrase. I'm not even Christian, and I support this, says Ola Witch. Matt Zaffino, CPA, says, hi, Nate. I suspect you support our public broadcaster, the CBC. Per the CBC, we've had dozens of church burnings. Were you aware? Do you consider these to be hate crimes? And on and on and on it goes. So the liberals, every time they open their mouths, at least on X, I'm not sure if it's the same on Facebook or Blue Sky, that new woke left-wing pedo social media platform that people seem to be flocking to by the million. Not sure if it's the same over there, but on X, these guys get ratioed every single time, and it's hilarious. All right. This is the guide to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Let me see if I can find it. Section 15. Here it is right here. Equality rights. We have equality rights in Canada, right? According to the Charter of Freedoms, Rights and Freedoms, we're supposed to anyway. So let's read Section 15. Equality before and under law and equal protection and benefit of law. Section 15(1). Every individual is equal before and under the law and has the right to the equal protection and equal benefit of the law without discrimination, and in particular, without discrimination based on race, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, sex, age, or mental or physical disability. All right. We win. Oh, wait, there's more. Affirmative action programs. Subsection 1 does not preclude any law program, or activity that has as its object the amelioration or conditions of disadvantaged individuals or groups, including those that are disadvantaged because of race, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, sex, age, or mental or physical disability. So that means everybody but white people. Now, George Carlin did a fantastic piece on this years ago about how do you constitute an African American? Could you say that a white racist from South Africa is an African American? How come certain Indians, East Indians, are classified as white people? And on and on and on he goes. It's actually quite a great piece. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. It's amazing. So, and then of course there's the mixed race people. So how on earth are you supposed to qualify any one person into a pigeonhole like this? I guess when it suits their purposes, they can do exactly what they want to do, and we can't fight back because of this stupid little clause in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I found that to be completely and totally ridiculous. You would think that our Constitution and our Charter of Rights and Freedoms would protect us from all this discrimination that's been going on, but no, only if you're, one of these visible minorities, I suppose. People who have been burdened by the color of their skin. All right. So there's more. I know we have some viewers in Kingston. As a matter of fact, I think I saw one in the comments earlier tonight. And Kingston, I spent 6 years of my life in Kingston. I would say that it's my second favorite city in the entire country. I loved my time in Kingston, Ontario. I thought, wow, man, this is if you want to get at least before when I was there 20 years ago, it's probably changed by now. But if you wanted to get a taste of what Canada was like when it was first becoming a country, Kingston is Canada's first capital city. That's where John A. Macdonald became prime minister. And the city hall they have there today was Canada's first parliament building before they moved the capital of the country to Ottawa. I think it was 1838, 1839. Before Confederation even, Kingston was the Canada's first capital. John A. Macdonald statue there, which is now, I think, in a wooden box someplace, because they kept defacing it. But back when I was there, man, they had a John A. Macdonald Appreciation Society, and every year on his birthday in January, I think it was, because John A. was known as a bit of a drunk, they'd go out there in the morning and they'd drink whiskey at the foot of the statue and then tell John A. Macdonald stories. And now he's become this villain somehow. And we have let it happen. It's happened on our watch. And look at this. Palestinian colors take over Kingston City Hall, Canada's first Capitol building. Look at this. Right there. Isn't that disgusting? It seems it was the city of Kingston's woke deputy clerk, who goes by the pronouns he, him, his, who decided to illuminate City Hall in the colors of Palestine last Friday to mark the UN's International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. According to Freedom of Information documents obtained by True North, Derek Hotez, I guess that's how you say it, went ahead with the plan to recognize Palestinian rights despite concerns raised by the city's mayor, Brian Patterson, and knowing full well the decision would draw significant media attention and negative feedback. FOI expert Michael Tieper sought out the background to this decision. The documents indicate the request for a flag raising and illumination of City Hall came from Independent Jewish Voices, a fringe group that does not represent Canada's Jewish community and is scorned for its promotion of terrorist sympathizers. We discussed them and who funds them on last night's show. In case you missed last night's show, go back and watch. The IJV application indicates it's based on Woodbine Avenue in Toronto. It says the IJV Kingston submitted the request, although no address is provided for the alleged branch. The application says that commemorating November 29th supports the city's objectives to create an inclusive city where everyone is welcomed, respected, and empowered. I don't get this whole inclusive thing. That's what the trans people use. That's what everybody uses when we want to be included. So we're going to put up our flags and our colors, and everybody else is not included. It's BS. It's not about inclusion. It's about exclusion. It's about putting yourself first. Well, why shouldn't we put ourselves first for a change? We're trying to change the narrative here. And you will get along to go along, or we will persecute you and call you names, you bully, fascist, pig. That's how they go about it. This is like Revenge of the Nerds on steroids. A bit of what I was talking about last night. These people probably grew up feeling oppressed and bullied in school, and now they're finally getting their revenge, and they are getting it in spades. On November 13th, the he, him, his clerk wrote the city's inclusion and diversity bureaucrat Vanessa Mensah and community planning manager Ruth Nordegraff, they, them, to advise the International Day of Solidarity is a legitimate day of recognition, and both the illumination and flag raising should be approved. Hotez includes no research to support his comments that it's legitimate, but does concede that approval of the requests will create significant controversy in the community. And Kingston, at least when I was there, that was the whitest city I have ever been in. I mean, that was a white place, man, the whitest of white. On November 15th, Hotez was forced to backtrack, indicating in an email the mayor raised concerns with the flag raising. He conceded the flag raising can't be approved after all because it goes against the city's flag raising policy, which states, among other things, that a country must have active diplomatic relations with Canada to receive this honor. That makes sense, right? Considering there's no such country as Palestine, I'm guessing the diplomatic relations were not exactly occurring, let alone active. But not to be denied his attempts to be woke, Hotez indicates the illumination will be approved. He added in his email that it might be a good opportunity to review the flag display policy. I'm not sure what he means by that, since he didn't respond to requests for comment on his decision to go forward with this tasteless and biased display. He does say in his November 15th email that all public or media requests should be directed to him, but I guess he couldn't handle the heat after all. The party line, which was shared by communications flack Paul Whittingham, another he, his, him, indicates the decision to light up City Hall in Palestinian colors of red and green last Friday was delegated to the city clerk's office under the first Capital Place illumination policy. The illumination was done for free. The request had to meet certain criteria, the city statement says. That includes fostering inclusion among and respect for Kingston residents as part of the city's increased emphasis on DEI. The illumination must promote events and issues that affect Kingston residents and, get this, promote a sense of community. The event must have a recognizable color or colors associated with it. And yeah, we know what these colors are. It's kind of emblazoned on our brain right now. Lastly, the application should be submitted by a representative of a nonprofit based in Kingston. As far as I'm concerned, none of these criteria were met. The last thing this incredibly idiotic decision did was foster inclusion and respect and promote a sense of community for all Kingston residents. Imagine being Jewish and seeing this last Friday night. It was tasteless, inappropriate, and further promotes a divide between Jews and pro-Palestinians in the midst of a terribly controversial conflict. And, well, anti-Semitism is already raging out of control. If Hotez had done his homework, and I suspect his wokeness or pro-Palestine agenda got in the way, it would have been easy to find out that IJV does not have anything remotely resembling an active chapter in Kingston. But this also begs the question, where was the mayor? Is he that spineless? Patterson indicated his reservations with the idea, according to the FOIA documents provided. Does he not have the final say over such controversial decisions, or are the woke bureaucrats running the show in Kingston? Did Hotez take it upon himself to make a decision that was not sanctioned by his superiors? Frankly, he should be placed on leave and the whole decision-making process investigated. It's disgusting to think that a woke and uninformed bureaucrat can push an agenda that's not in the best interests of the city, especially one so controversial and ill thought out. Written by Sue Ann Levy. I like Sue Ann. She's pretty good. Pretty good. What else have we got for you here? Oh, this one here. from Harrison Faulkner. I saw him tweeting about this rage tweet the other day, and he finally did a story on it. It's very cool. Canadian military extremism probe questions soldiers over Make Canada Great Again hats. Is your blood boiling right now? It should be. Should be about 105, 110 degrees Fahrenheit right about now, and it's going to get hotter. Mine is boiling, which is good because it's still pretty cold in here. A questionnaire sent to soldiers by the Canadian Armed Forces asks if they've purchased extremism merchandise offering Make Canada Great Again hats as an example. The questionnaire, which was leaked to True North, was designed to assist the military in its efforts to detect and combat hateful conduct and radicalization among the ranks. Soldiers who participated in this study are being asked, for example, if in the last 2 to 5 years they've purchased extremism merchandise like the Make Canada Great Again hat, liked an extremist group post on social media, or provided strategic advice or training to an extremist group, like conservative voters. 43% of the population of the country. Because that, seriously, they think that we are part of a cult. These way left, extreme radical Marxists think that we're the cult. They are that brainwashed. It's incredible. And yet they seem to be the ones in the positions of power right now. Again, we let that happen. It's our fault. It's on our watch. And now we need to go back and fix it. We were sleeping, man. We were asleep at the wheel when we let this all go down. Now, to be fair, we didn't know. We didn't know what they were doing. Didn't even occur to us. But now that we're awake and alert, we can fight back. We can take it back. We can. It all starts on the local level, remember. Look at what happened in Kingston. If the people of Kingston, and I doubt this happened because I know what Kingston is like, but if the people of Kingston actually stood up and fought back against that Palestinian nonsense, man, I am telling you, that dude, that city manager, he would have been fired that very next day or that night. And that whole DEI thing would be scrapped. All those he, him, her, whatever crap, all that stuff would be taken off the emails. DEI would be toast in Kingston if the people rose up, because it's a small enough place. It's like 175,000 people. So those politicians have to face their electorate every single day. The mayor, too. Every day he's walking through the streets, people are going to be looking at him going, you are a jackass. Why did you let that happen? Of course, they'd be using far more colorful metaphors than I just used right now. But they would be forced in a pressure cooker like that to stop all this nonsense yesterday. But it seems like, at least for now, it's still going on. But if we get loud enough, and I know there's people watching from Kingston right now, you guys form yourself a group, get enraged, tell people what happened, and they'll fight back. Tell them how, show them how. Share the emails of all of the city councilors and the mayor, and say that you are absolutely outraged that this happened on your nickel. It's divisive. It is un-Canadian, and we don't need this in our city, especially at the building that housed the first Parliament of Canada. Back to this story here about the extremist stuff, the extremist questionnaires in the military. The Department of National Defense distanced itself from the survey in a written statement to True North, saying, well, the DND, CAF is not funding this research, nor has it contracted this research. This study is being conducted by independent researchers from Ontario Tech University's Network for Research on Hateful Conduct and Right-Wing Extremism in the Canadian Armed Forces. Who? Ontario Tech University's Network for Research on Hateful Conduct and Right-Wing Extremism in the Canadian Armed Forces. Who funds that? Where does that come from? You could bet somehow the federal government's funding that, or maybe Tides Foundation. The DND noted the final report will be shared with the Canadian Armed Forces when ready, and reiterated that hateful conduct be it through words or actions, is completely incompatible with the values and ethical principles of the Department of National Defense and the Canadian Armed Forces. The questionnaire also asks soldiers if they suspect members of their current unit or soldiers outside of their unit if they belong to extremist groups. That is absolutely insane. It's insane. Here's another one. Canada, this is from Cult Montreal. And yes, this is a far left rag. I'm not sure if you follow them on X or not, but it's incredible. Like full on Trudeau mania. Truanon exists on Cult Montreal. And they say here that Canada is giving cities more resources to crack down on Airbnbs and other short-term rentals. Crack down? What do you mean? You're telling me that I can't do what I want to do with my own property? That's what you're saying. Well, there's a housing crisis. No. So listen to this. There are more than 200,000 short-term rentals across the country, like Airbnbs and Verbos, that could be turned into housing. Doesn't matter whether or not they're privately owned. So they're coming up with regulations to stop people from owning them. And if they already own them, to somehow try and take them back or convert them into long-term housing at their own cost, of course. And they're using enforcement to get their way on this, trying to solve a problem they themselves created. It's amazing, isn't it? And so keep in mind how this goes along with the UN agenda. They are taking people's property from them. You went out and you bought a property specifically for short-term rentals. And then what does the government do? Say, oh, you can't do that. There's a housing crisis. How dare you? This week, the Canadian government announced a $50 million investment in the short-term rental enforcement fund with an estimated 235,000 Airbnbs, Verbos, and other short-term rental units in Canada right now. The goal of the fund is to bring non-compliant units back to the long-term housing market by helping cities to properly enforce regulations. As Housing Minister Sean Fraser noted, the aim is to make sure that short-term rentals don't contribute to Canada's housing crisis. Dude, you and your boss are the ones who created the housing crisis. These people owned these places long before the crisis even happened, and then you came along. And now, in order to cover your own ass, you're trying to take people's property, what they've worked for their entire lives, away from them through stupid BS, public regulations, both civic and federal. That's outrageous. What else is going on? Well, there's a confidence vote coming up on Monday, and they debated that today in the House of Commons.
Why were the Conservatives chirping? They proved that bootlickers are billionaires.
The Halifax longshoremen, unionized workers, have just put out a statement. On Monday, the NDP has the opportunity to reinforce that they will not bring in back-to-work legislation by supporting their own leaders' words. Canadians want to fire that costly Prime Minister. His MPs want to fire that costly Prime Minister. The only one keeping him in power is the NDP leader, who again says the Liberals are too weak, too selfish, and too beholden to corporate interests to fight for people. Oh, and now they're complaining that Canadians might choose me if there were an election. That's not their choice. It's not my choice. It's not any of their choices. That's the decision of the Canadian people. So why doesn't he turn the decision over to the people who run this country, Canadians, in a carbon tax election?
Oh, there's more.
The results are in on the Prime Minister's radical liberalization of hard drugs. He teamed up with the BC NDP to decriminalize fentanyl, crack, and heroin. He lowered jail sentences for mass producers of deadly fentanyl. And 80% of the fentanyl made in Canada is done so using ingredients that are not even regulated, but come right into our country where they're cooked into that poison, now threatening our trade relationship with the U.S. Will he reverse his radical liberal drug agenda to save lives and jobs?
He's not there to do the work of delivering based on science, based on compassion, based on a public health approach on dealing with the toxic drug epidemic. He is instead continuing to try to score cheap political points on the backs of the most vulnerables. That's not serious. That's not responsible.
What is not responsible is allowing 80% of the chemicals used in fentanyl manufacturing to come in unregulated and legally. What is not responsible is decriminalizing crack, heroin, and fentanyl, and then after you see that it leads to a massive increase in deaths, then 2 weeks ago, he, the Bloc, and the NDP all voted in favor of a committee report to decriminalize fentanyl right across the country at a time when Canadians are dying and our border could be closed. Will the Prime Minister confirm that he has reversed himself and now opposes decriminalization of fentanyl?
Remember we talked about fentanyl last night? Axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, blah, blah, blah. Remember we talked about fentanyl last night on the show and how dangerous it is, how many people it can kill, and how much of it is in our country right now? And Trudeau wants to legalize it? Well, actually, he has for the provinces that want it to be legalized. I know in Manitoba, they're opening a so-called safe injection site in a part of town that has been trying so hard over the past 20 years to get past all the crime and drug use. And it looked like they were turning the corner. This is an area of town called Point Douglas, which used to be 100 years ago, like one of the nicest parts of the city. And then in the last 100 years, it just went downhill. But in the last 20 years, people have been going in there. They've been putting infills in. They've been really sprucing up that neighborhood. There's community watch programs now. They're getting more money injected into that area of town through private, not public people. And now they want to open a safe injection site in that area, even though the government of Manitoba has been very coy about where this new safe injection site's going. And finally, they admitted today, after weeks of lying, that it's going into Point Douglas. And the people there are outraged, even though the health minister, the NDP health minister of Manitoba said they're not outraged. On the contrary, it seems they're quite happy about it. Happy that they're getting a safe injection site, even though these places have failed miserably in places like Edmonton, Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto. Because what happens is that crime goes up in the general area of these things by 40%, according to statistics. And the neighborhoods around them go down in value, and the people who live in those neighborhoods wind up fearing for their life just by going home. And when they get in the house, they have to worry about their car sitting in their driveway like, oh my God, somebody's going to steal it or smash my windows or vandalize my house in some way. Or I'm going to have to make sure my kids don't step on needles in my own yard. But hey, man, safe injection sites. Let's help out those addicts. Let's make sure they stay addicts. I wouldn't be opposed to these places if they were in remote rural locations and they actually had a plan to help people recover from their drug addiction, but they don't. You forgot step 2, Marxists. What else is going on here? Oh, more debate in the House of Commons, and this time, the Bloc leader gets involved.
This is what he's standing against. He's trying to convince Canadians that everything's broken while he forces his MPs to vote against a GST break that's going to help Canadians over the coming months. That's not leadership. That's pandering to the lowest common denominator.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has everyone unanimously against him and his so-called Christmas present. Canadians don't want it. Business owners don't want it. Retirees don't want it. Students don't want it. Economists don't want it. Even those who are well off and kind-hearted, they don't want it. No one wants the Prime Minister's Christmas gift. When will the Prime Minister understand that one cannot buy votes? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are struggling. That's why we are offering a tax break to all Canadians for the next few months. Mr. Speaker, Canadians who are struggling are those who will not receive a rebate check. You know who is struggling, Mr. Speaker? The Liberals themselves. The Conservatives don't seem to support the proposal. The NDP neither. The Bloc Québécois neither. No one in this House seems to support the rebate check. If the Prime Minister is so sure of himself, why doesn't he make it a matter of confidence and have a confidence vote?
Oh! Look at the Conservatives. Yeah, the Conservatives. Look at the big smile on the Joker's face there, Andrew Scheer. Yeah, baby, yeah. Rooting on the block. I can tell you from a couple of my contacts in the Ottawa political bubble, this is going to sound really weird to you guys, but political expediency, right? The bloc is primed for an election. It's projected, I think the bloc's got 34 seats right now. It's projected the bloc is going to gain 10 seats at least in Quebec, which makes them a more powerful force, right? So, yeah, they're geared up. They got the money. They're ready to rock and roll. They want 10 new MPs, absolutely. So the bloc wants an election. The Conservatives want an election, and together, 34 plus 119 equals 153. 153 votes in the House of Commons. There's 4 independents. There's 2 Greens. So that's 6 votes. Generally speaking, those votes will go with the 153 votes the Liberals have, and the 24 votes that the NDP have to give them the majority. So that's probably what's going to happen on Monday during this confidence vote. But mark my words, one of these same sources I've been speaking with this week tells me there will be an election called or forced by at least the end of February, maybe before that. And look, you've already got 2 of the major parties in the House of Commons lined up against you. They are swimming around you like sharks. They're circling. And the NDP's got to be feeling this pressure too, especially considering this non-confidence motion on Monday is based upon the words, quotes from Jagmeet Singh himself, and he says he's going to be voting against his own words. How does that make him look to his voter base? How does he separate himself from Justin Trudeau now? They're both sitting around 20% in the polling, and they're only going to go down. And the Conservatives are going to go up. And I'll tell you what, for you PPC bros out there and sisters, now would be a great opportunity for Maxime Bernier to get into the swing of things and start really ramping up a campaign, a PPC campaign. And here's a tip. Don't go after the Conservatives. Go after the Liberals and the NDP and get some of their people and just talk straight common sense to them. You can probably shave 2 or 3 points off the Conservatives. You might be able to shave 2 or 3 points off the Liberals and the NDP. Combine that with the 3% you have already, gets you up to 9%. And if you can somehow concentrate that in 5 or 10 ridings, you have a chance to pull off some seats in the House of Commons. And I would love to see opposition from the right of the Conservatives, as opposed to the Conservatives always having to fight the Liberals and the NDP on the left. It keeps the Conservatives center left, believe it or not. But if the PPC starts fighting with the Liberals and the NDP, that allows the Conservative Party, who, let's face it, will form a supermajority government in the next election. That allows the Conservative Party to move to the right and nobody notices. If you can distract the media with fights between Maxime Bernier, whoever's leading the Liberals, and whoever's leading the NDP, then the Conservatives can start doing conservative things as a government. Will they? Time will tell. I don't know. Some of you believe yes, some of you believe no. But also, once this next election is over with, and let's say the PPC does have a few seats, then they can start putting pressure on the Conservatives to be conservatives and start doing some of the right stuff. Are there kids watching this right now? Are there any kids watching this right now? Please, if there are, I want you to Move the kids away from the screen for the next couple of minutes. This is not a kid-friendly show. This show is definitely not designed for children. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to hate it when my dad was watching the news on TV. I wanted to watch something else. Okay, all right. This is kind of disappointing news for the kids. Canada Post has removed the deadline for Santa letter program as the strike continues. They've been off the job now for 2.5 weeks, those postal workers. And this program delivers up to 1.5 million letters addressed to the North Pole from Canadian kids every year. Used to be that you would write Santa a letter. Santa Claus, North Pole, postal code HOH, OHO. Remember that? Well, these days, you can email Santa Claus. Yeah. And you can always go see Santa in a mall near you. And if you've been a good girl, you've been a good boy, you're on Santa's nice list, you're going to get most of the things you ask for, depending upon how much money is in mommy and daddy's wallet. Don't ask me how, but that correlates with how much Santa brings you. I don't know. Just does. Right, kids? Yeah. But if mommy and daddy can't afford certain things, there is help. There is help for that as well. One last thing here. Well, there's a couple more things, actually. I just thought that I'd run this past you guys. The Royal Bank today released their income for the year, ending at the end of October, $16.2 billion. $16.2 billion. Up 1.6 billion or 11% from the prior year. Royal Bank. All those little fees, surcharges on surcharges. It adds up, doesn't it? To a tune of $16.2 billion, man. Go to a credit union, Bow Valley Credit Union. Hello, Kevin. How you doing, man? I want to drum up your clientele because you guys do a great job. Bow Valley Credit Union. And it would be really cool if you guys could branch out into the rest of Canada. Right now, they're mostly in Alberta, but hopefully they'll be branching out at some point soon. Peter Hotez. You guys know Peter Hotez. He's a doctor who works on vaccines from Texas. And all through the COVID pandemic, you saw him on CNN and MSNBC talking about how great these new vaccines were and how they were going to save us from this horrible disease out there. And this is a guy who wouldn't debate with RFK Jr. on the Joe Rogan show, even though they asked him over and over and over again, hey, man, if you're so sure about what you're saying regarding these jabs, then why don't you come on and have an honest-to-God, respectful debate with RFK Jr.? No time limit whatsoever. Joe Rogan made that offer. We'll show it to you right now. Here it is. Joe Rogan said, Peter, if you claim what RFK Jr. is saying is misinformation, I'm offering you, what does he say here? $100,000 to the charity of your choice if you're willing to debate him on my show with no time limit. Because Peter Hotez said Spotify has stopped even sort of trying to stem Joe Rogan's vaccine misinformation. It's really true. Just awful. And from all the online attacks I'm receiving after this absurd podcast, it's clear many actually believe this nonsense. Blah, 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 blah. So here is Peter Hotez today on MSNBC talking about all the possible pandemics that could be coming our way as early as January 20th. I don't know why he was so specific with that date. Oh, wait a minute. That's the day Donald Trump is inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States. Watch this.
Here's the reason why we need to care about this stuff, Nicole, is that we have some big picture stuff coming down the pike starting on January 21st. Mr. Bloomberg mentioned H5N1. That I'm really worried about. It's all over wild birds on the western part of the United States and going up in the north. It's getting into the poultry. We're seeing sporadic human cases, no human-to-human transmission yet, but that could happen. It's in the cattle. It's in the milk. And that's just the beginning. We have another major coronavirus likely brewing in Asia. We've had SARS in 2002, SARS-2, COVID-19 in 2019. And we know these viruses are jumping from bats to people thousands of times a year, but there's still more. We know that we have a big problem with mosquito-transmitted viruses all along the Gulf Coast, where I am here in Texas. So we're expecting dengue and possibly Zika virus coming back, or a Puche virus, maybe even yellow fever. And there's more. Then we have all this sharp rise in vaccine preventable diseases going up because of, in part, the anti-vaccine activism that's so prominent right now. We have a 5-fold rise in pertussis cases, whooping cough over the last year, 15 measles outbreaks this year. We've got polio that's been in the wastewater in New York State. All that's going to come crashing down on January 21st on the Trump administration. We need a really, really good team to be able to handle this.
Yeah. All right. Here is RFK Jr. on a podcast a couple of years ago, trying to figure out why this Peter Hotez wackadoodle wouldn't debate with him.
Joe Rogan proposed just such a debate, which is quite fascinating to see how much attention and how much funding it garnered. The debate between you and Peter Hotez. Why do you think Peter rejected the offer?
I think again, I'm not going to look into his head, but what I will say is, if you're a scientist and you're making public recommendations based upon what you say is evidence-based science, you ought to be able to defend that. You ought to be able to defend it in a public forum, and you ought to be able to defend it against, all comers. And, if you're a scientist, science is rooted in logic and reason. And if you can't use logic and reason to defend your position, and by the way, I know almost all of the studies. I've written books on them, and we've made a big effort to assemble all the studies on both sides. And so I'm prepared to talk about those studies, and I'm prepared to submit them in advance, for each of the points. And by the way, I've done that with Peter Hotez. I've actually, because I had this kind of informal debate with him several years ago with a referee at that time, and we were debating not only by phone, but by email. And on those emails, every point that he would make, I would cite science, and he could never come back with science. He could never come back with publications. He would give publications that had nothing to do with, for example, thimerosal and vaccines, mercury-based vaccines. He sent me one time 16 studies to rebut something I'd said about thimerosal, and not one of those studies, they were all about the MMR vaccine, which doesn't contain thimerosal. So it wasn't like a real debate where you're using reason and isolating points and having a rational discourse. I don't think that I don't blame him for not debating me, because I don't think he has the science.
Okay. So this is all we've been asking for the past 4 years. Really, if you think about it. During the Freedom Convoy, I believe they got all kinds of Canadian, Paul Alexander, Canadian professors, doctors, virologists, all kinds of guys together to sit down and try and have a meeting with Theresa Tam and some of her medical experts, Fisman, all of those people, to sit down and have a debate and talk about why they were doing the things they were doing and be allowed to present their findings. And it never happened because they were convinced that they were right. And I don't even think that's quite true. They were convinced they had the money and they had the power and they didn't have to listen. Not at that time, anyhow. You got a guy like Byron Bridle who's been going off about this for the past 3 years for good reason. And all he wanted to do was compare notes and talk about his findings, and you show me your findings and make sure they're based and grounded in actual evidentiary science, and then we can start to have a discussion here. But it never happened. They didn't allow us to ask questions. It wasn't like we were saying, this stuff is poison. At the beginning, we didn't know. We were cautious, and we wanted to make sure that it was going to be safe, and effective before we put it in our bodies and the bodies of our families. And for that, we were labeled, we were branded, we were smeared, and we're still being smeared today. You just want to wait. It's pragmatism. That's all it is. All right, enough of that for now. One last thing before we go to the extension tonight for the all access folks on shadowdavis.com. We're going to talk more about biodigital convergence tonight. It's on the Canadian government website, the horizons.service.canada.ca. But we also have a TED Talk that goes back 6 or 7 years from Dr. Sarah Jane Dunn of Oxford University in England. And she's going to talk about how they had been, like this is 6 years ago or 5 years ago, she gave this talk. And she's going to talk about how they've already been incorporating technology into human beings and what they've been trying to accomplish with that and what their goals are for the future. And remember, this TED Talk we're going to show you in the extension tonight, 5 or 6 years ago. I want to ask you guys a question, and I know they're just like, there's still over 1,000 of you guys here. Some of you leave early. I don't know why. You leave. What do you think? You're going to get caught in traffic? Come on, stick around until the show's over, for goodness sakes, unless you're really tired. So we still have over 1,000 live viewers. I want to ask you guys a question. I'm going to throw this video up on the screen. It's maybe 20 seconds. Tell me what city this is. What? Okay, what city is that? Put it down in the comments, please. If you're watching on X or YouTube or Facebook or whatever, Rumble, put it down in the comments. What city? Well, let's play it again here. Let's see. Zipper back. Play it again. Okay, some comments in the Rumble chat. Jasmine says Vancouver. Nope. Mouth of the South says Brampton. Nope. And then Surrey. Nope. Joanne Tapley says Ottawa. Nope. Dame Pam says Toronto. Nope. People are asking Brampton. Yeah, it's a good guess, but that's not right. Let's see what other people are saying here. Ron, you're right. You're right, Ron. That is London, England. Doesn't look very British, does it? But that is London, England. All right, that's it for the show tonight, you guys. We're going to continue on with the extension on shadowdavis.com in just a couple of minutes. Biodigital convergence. How is it affecting us? And what do they want to do to us? Seriously, what do they want to do with this? And why is this stuff on the Canadian government website? And something else that you can show your non-believing friends, this website. I put a link in the comments, and I'll put it in the comments on Rumble as well. In case you've got people going, you're just a conspiracy theorist, man. Like, I don't even know why I bother listening to you. Say, hey, look, man, go ahead and read it. It's on the federal government website. They're talking about they want to put electrodes or implants into your head. Well, yeah, it's for the good. Is it? Tell me what technology has not been corrupted by the bad guys. For those of you social media watchers, I'll catch you tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Central, for another Shadow at Night live stream for you all access members at shadowdavis.com. I will see you in 2 minutes. I love you all. Appreciate you all. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.